Who dat? Who dat? Who dat? Who dat gonna beat that Junkyard Dog? Nobody gonna beat that Junkyard Dog. The Junkyard Dog was a man that captivated so many fans in New Orleans and surrounding areas in Mid-South Wrestling, and then took his talents to Vince McMahon's land of cartoonish, outlandish, but insanely popular wrestling, where he was absolutely one of the biggest stars of the 1980s. He captivated so many fans, and the thump, the chain, the charisma. It was astonishing just how over the Junkyard Dog was all over the world. Then, unfortunately, vices continued to hold on to him, where his career was cut short and his life, unfortunately, was cut short. Many fans left wondering, many family members left wondering, what could have been? What could have been? But what a career he had, however brief it was. I'm John Recton with my review of Dark Side of the Ring, The Junkyard Dog. Some great talking heads on this. And I do want to say right at the beginning, if you or someone you know if you have any substance abuse issues, help is out there. I will put that number in the description, but truly another cautionary tale. It really is astonishing just how quickly he rose and how quickly he fell. From 1980, the feud with Michael Hayes, and considering where he was before that, the humble beginnings, all that, but in Stampede Wrestling, and then the feud with Michael Hayes, and then the rise of Mid-South Wrestling, and then the sudden departure by 1988. My goodness, it was amazing how far he fell. So much great footage, so many great talking heads. Dark Side of the Ring is taking a break for next week because it's July 4th, so on the 11th, Adrian Adonis will be the next episode. And this was a great episode. JYD's story is pretty well known. There are a few things that I didn't know, just as somebody that really got into wrestling only when he was in the WWF, because, I'm 42. I wasn't able to see his Mid-South Wrestling run, at least at the time. Able to see some footage, later on, and just seeing how many people loved him and how beloved he was by the communities. Just how much he gave back. He was such a generous guy. And for African American talents, he was such an inspiration. Was he the first? No. But was he one of the most prominent? Absolutely. Especially with the advent of more syndicated and cable television and just the charisma. I love the Ernie Ladd shit. My God, what a charismatic, great talker he was. Ernie Ladd, doing JYD's induction, before his daughter accepted on her dad's behalf. It's just Ernie Ladd. God, what an incredible fucking promo he was. So incredibly eloquent. Just how it's hard to encapsulate just how great Ernie Ladd was. How truly great Ernie Ladd was for many, many years behind the scenes and in the ring. Still love the Ox Baker story. Ox, the natives are getting restless. Leave with your heat. But great Ernie Ladd stuff. Great stuff from Bill Watts. I kind of understand why Bill Watts didn't want to be part of this. Also, Bill was at least in his 80s at this point. JR talks about the infectious energy of JYD, considering he was in Mid-South and got to witness the rise and the departure. Makes sense why JR is part of this. Jake Roberts knew JYD well from Mid-South, and also the drug issues. That's one thing that Jake Roberts was good for on this, was to talk about the drug issues and how he was deep into them when JYD passed away. New Orleans was JYD's town, that whole who dat thing. I've never been to New Orleans, but I am told by many people that have either lived there or still live there that, yeah, JYD is still talked about, and you really don't want to mess with the local heroes. Don't want to mess with the Saints. You don't want to do any of that stuff. JR talks about the old promoters only wanting to have one black talent and how it was stupid, and that JYD had charisma for days. Couldn't really wrestle. I mean, and you can look back at his matches. He had to have his opponents come to him, work with him. And it wasn't that JYD was awful in the ring. He just had a certain amount of things he could do outside of his his power slam and just being, a boundless energy ball of charisma. Bill Watts took a chance on JYD. There was some great old footage of Bill Watts not just from Mid-South, but from shoot interviews. Coco Beware, it was great to hear from Coco Beware on this. I'm so happy that he's, still in pretty good health. It was kind of funny how he didn't turn his cell phone off at the start of the interview. I don't know why that was kind of funny. JYD, crowd eating out of the palm of his hand pretty much right from about 1980 on. Like, they took to him really, really quickly Mid-South. Of course they would. I mean, considering where he grew up, considering the humble beginnings and all that, and the fact that he came across as very real, because he was very real. He was a larger-than-life personality on TV, but he also was based in reality. And the Ernie Ladd audio, love it, absolutely love it. Would love a Dark Side of the Ring on Ernie Ladd at some point. Tony Atlas, he was good here also. He's been good in some of the episodes. I loved him in the Bruiser Brody one. Wish he would have gotten hold of Jose Gonzalez, would have snapped him like a twig. But nevertheless, Tony Atlas talking about how he enjoyed hanging out with JYD, Ted DiBiase, that feud. Hey, they showed footage of Ted DiBiase in WWF and a certain announcer named Mel Phillips. Google Mel Phillips, WWF announcer, kids. You will be very surprised. Just don't let him see your feet. Linda McMahon, bringing him back. Please just don't do anything creepy like you were before. Stupid goddamn twat. Anyway, yeah, Mel Phillips. If I want to talk about a goddamn piece of shit that never deserved to be in wrestling. So, they were supposed to highlight what JYD could do well and disguise his weaknesses, accentuate strengths, hide the weaknesses. That's what Ted did well. And Ted DiBiase and JYD had a great feud. Looking back on, great feud. And then it was, everybody talks about how it was impossible not to like JYD. Jeff Duggan was a great talking head here. Bill Watts loved JYD. He didn't see black or white. He saw green. I mean, obviously he saw that as an African-American talent, JYD could draw people. But, boss, I thought it was all about the green. And that was on the Soul of Wrestling Legends of Roundtable discussion. Nothing about Leroy McGurk, owner of the Oklahoma Territory, being a noted racist and a blind piece of shit, but nevertheless. Cornette talks about, the fans worshipped him. And they did worship him. And it would make sense why Cornette would be here to talk about this, because of Midnight Express, Watts, and JYD. Stagger Lee, that is, when, JYD was under a mask, because he had to leave the territory to be Stagger Lee. How it's good that Cornette talked about this, because the Last Stampede series of shows actually led to Mid-South's biggest year, I believe 8-something million, 8.2, 8.5 million. And they grossed a little over 1 to 1.5 million, I think, in that 5 to 6 week period in 84. And then the Freebirds came in. Freebirds were really over pretty much instantly once they got to Mid-South. And, once they got, once like a little bit of TV and they got established, it's hard not to appreciate Hayes being a great talker, Buddy Roberts being a great worker, and Terry Gordy just being incredible as far as a bump taker, as far as how just massive he was as a human, literally and figuratively. But they had the Freebird hair cream, and then they accidentally blinded the dog, and there was a promo, my daughter's going to be born, I'm going to be able to hold her, but I won't be able to see her. The fans were livid. They were breaking the Freebirds' cars, breaking out the headlights. They would slash the police car tires. Because it was like, you want to help the Freebirds. Okay, we don't care about you. We'll do that. And then he was at ringside, blinded, and then a fan's like, don't worry, dog, I got it. And he pulls out this gun, which was a great reenactment. And JYD's like, shit, do I expose the fact I can see, or do I just kayfabe it? I think I'll kayfabe it, and then the cops got him. So, fortunately, JYD didn't have to do that. And fortunately, the fan didn't shoot anybody. That's how much they love JYD. And this Mid-South footage, it was so great to see. Teddy Long was in this. Love Teddy Long. Holla, holla, holla. But no, Teddy Long is almost like a meme at this point. A lot of people forget that Teddy Long actually was a hell of a goddamn manager. He managed a tag team of Doom. He also managed Norman the Lunatic, which JR apologized for on that same Legends of Roundtable discussion. The Soul of Wrestling. But, Teddy Long, he was a manager. He was a referee. He was a manager. I think he even managed Ice Train for a little bit, which is odd because that was such a weird pairing. And then became, he was referee, manager, all that in WWE, and it's nice to see him still doing well. So JYD wanted to get back. He did get back to the people. He grew up in a town called Wadesboro, North Carolina, which doesn't look like it's very big according to what I Googled. Doesn't look like it's very big. His nephew Jarvis, who was great here, a true rags to riches story. Raised by his grandmother, mother, I believe great grandmother too. Grew up without a father. The old house. I mean, the fact it's still standing. I mean, I wish somebody would help renovate that so it could be really, really livable. Because it looks a little, it looks a little, aka a lot dilapidated, at least from the outside. The pic collages. Gave back to the fans a ton. Gave a kid the chain. He would just be very generous. He was also very frivolous with money, unfortunately, because he came up to riches and thought, okay, yeah, I'll do this. I'll just spend all this money because the vices started to take hold. Speed, downers, cocaine, groupies that would pay the dog to have sex with him. Tony Atlas liked feet, but Tony Atlas, unlike Mel Phillips, Tony Atlas did it with adult individuals, not with kids. Seriously, Google Mel Phillips, WWF announcer. You'll see what I mean. JYD was getting $2 to $3 grand a week minimum, and that's in Mid-South, and that was big money. But then again, he was drawing a ton of money. You could almost argue Watts could have paid him $6 grand, and it would have paid off. But then, unfortunately, much like everybody else, he left for greener pastures. 1984 was Mid-South's biggest year. And also, that was because of the oil boom. Then there was the oil bust somewhere in 86, 87, I believe, where Watts sold the now Universal Wrestling Federation to Crockett for $4 million, which it wasn't even worth that at that point. But Watts wasn't happy that JYD basically left without a whole lot of notice. He even went on TV to go off and everything. It's like Austin took his ball and went home. That's kind of actually similar to what Watts did with the JYD, but you can understand. But then, unfortunately, they decide, hey, we're just going to slot any African-American talent in. We're just going to do that. The reason, this is what Teddy Long said, this is the reason, the rumor and innuendo or innuendo, the reason that JYD decided to leave is Watts went in the bathroom with Grizzly Smith, and JYD was in there. He was in a stall using the bathroom, but they heard that. And Grizzly's like, I'm afraid we're going to lose Dog. And Grizzly actually was thinking, I'm afraid I'm going to lose access to this 14-year-old girl. Fuck Grizzly Smith, I'm glad he's dead. He didn't die soon enough. But Watts said, don't worry, that N-word ain't going to go anywhere. That's all I'm going to say right there. Do not say the word in the comments. I will ban you. We will not be saying that word. We will not, as a collective, amount of people, we need to not say words like that. Those words need to be abolished. Watts denied this. He says complete fiction. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it was true. There are a lot of those old time promoters, a lot of those people who grew up in that era, even into the 90s, would use that language. Shouldn't have. They should have known better. But nevertheless, George Wells, Brickhouse Brown, Snowman, Butch Reed, all these people that they tried to put in JYD's spot didn't work. It's like having a cowboy replace John Wayne, said JR. The trip to WWF, he was earning 6 figures a quarter on his action figure deals. And the whole grab them cakes theme never fit. Another one, Bites of Dust, fit a whole lot better. But Vince didn't want to pay for the licensing of music, even though he flew close to the sun with Easy Lover for Mania and a few others. But nevertheless, Grab Them Cakes was his theme. Even though he was over, and even though he had moments, he was not featured as the guy like he should have been. Now, He has drug issues. They continue to take hold. And you had to wonder, reliability. If he wasn't going to show up, could you really put the title on him? It would have been cool to see him as first African American WWF champion. And had his drug issues not taken hold in '88, we might have seen that instead of Randy Savage. All due respect to Randy Savage, who I think was a tremendous champion, should have been champion a whole lot longer, and should have been out of Hogan's shadow. But Vince Sr. featured a lot of minorities. Pedro Morales, Bruno Sammartino, well, Samoans, so many others. I mean, I did a bunch that are popping up in my head. Vince Jr., even though he had minority talents up and down the card, he wanted, Hogan, Piper, Bret Hart, Tony Atlas said Bret Hart wasn't even really featured all that prominently until like '87 when he was part of the Hart Foundation. I mean, yeah, he was part of the Hart Foundation before that, but my point is that, they show Bret Hart when he's in the blue and black tights, when he was still finding his goddamn footing. But yes, Hogan and Piper and others and everything, Randy Savage and all that. A lot of people that were, of Caucasian or at least close enough for rock and roll, because Hogan always wanted to be more tan, even though he hated the brother's brother. And then we get the crack cocaine, Bobby. Sorry, I couldn't help it. JYD, he even had a limo driver with Tony Atlas in it when they were supposed to go to a Tuesday Night Titans taping. Hey, let's go to let's drive around so I can get some stuff. And he smoked in the car. Tony Atlas was confused. By 1988, JYD's vices had taken hold. He was gone. I think he was gone right after SummerSlam of '88. I think he was gone right after SummerSlam. And they no showing is the reason why. Jim Duggan talks about how he did drugs too. He's not, he never developed he never had the addictive personality, and he wasn't knocking JYD. He was just stating it. But the no-shows are why JYD was gone. I believe he was part of SummerSlam '88. And then they treated like he was on the Indies for so goddamn long, when I think he showed up in WCW in '89, if I recall correctly. I think it was '89. 90, I think he was around in '92 and '93. And he actually cut weight in '92. He actually looked a lot better, but then the vices continued to hold on. And the footage in 1993, which I actually totally forgot about. I really did. I forgot he teamed up with Jim Neidhart. Yes, during the time when Jim Neidhart was out of the WWF. JYD couldn't move. He was 40. He had the drug issues. He had the injuries, but mainly the drug issues. Money issues. It's not that he didn't like his daughter. It's just that he was on the road so much and wasn't able to see his daughter a ton. Jake Roberts talks about how painful and shameful, all that stuff, about how you see yourself when you're on drugs. And he went from wrestling to Walmart, which sounds like a shirt slogan. And nothing wrong with getting an income. I just want to say that right there. I mean, yes, it may feel like a fall from grace, but at least he was earning money. It obviously wasn't as much as he was earning in wrestling, but hey, it was an income. He wasn't just going to be somebody who was going to go totally off the goddamn map. He was trying to do something. I can't fault him there. Tony Atlas talks about being homeless for 18 months, and the Saba Simba gimmick basically saved him. Because he didn't save his money. JYD didn't save his money. We thought this would last forever. And JYD didn't really save his money. I mean, he wasn't... Yes, he spent it on drugs, but he also gave back to people and stuff like that. He called Ted DiBiase later in the 90s and said, "You're doing missionary work. Tell the kids and everybody, young people not to do what I did." Hey, let's ask the people of Mississippi about what Ted DiBiase does for religious work. Let's ask about that. And he missed his daughter's graduation because it was a long drive from Mississippi over to North Carolina, I believe. And then he died in a car wreck. He was up way too long, fell asleep, had trauma. That's what ended up causing his death. And yeah, at age 45, he died. The Watts, it closed with footage of Watts saying, "I wish we had been able to rectify after the split and everything. I mean, because there were so many great times I didn't want to let that dominate our relationship. I did not know that JYD's daughter died. I did not know. I know she accepted his, or it did the Hall of Fame acceptance on his behalf because that was 2004. JYD died in 1998. I did not know his daughter died. Ruptured heart valve. So there was nothing they could do. And I mean, Jarvis, nephew, talked about that, and that was really sad. She was 31, I think they said. That's really, really sad. You have to wonder what could have been. You have to wonder what JYD's career could have been. Obviously, if the drug issues hadn't taken hold, I don't know if he would have wrestled much past 93, 94. He might have wanted to get out of that. I don't know if WCW would have been able to use him. Vince McMahon, he might have bopped back and forth. We'll never know. It is really sad, though. But he left a hell of a goddamn mark, in the 80s especially. Remember the good times, understand the bad times, but understand that... See, unlike Matt Bourne, who has addictions, was also a piece of shit, JYD at least seemed to be somebody that had his issues, but was a good guy to the talents and a good guy to the fans. So there you go. 2 weeks, back with the Adrian Adonis review. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Recklin. I'll see you soon.